Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rental Regrets. As always, I am your host, Victory Nub, and today we are looking at Paperboy 2, developed by Eastridge Technology, published by Mindscape, and released in the United States on November 1st of 1991. Now, we are looking at the Super Nintendo version of the game today. However, the game was also released on the Amiga, the Amstrad CPC, MS-DOS versions were available, the Game Boy, the Game Gear, Sega Genesis, regular Nintendo, and the ZX Spectrum. So this game came out on quite a few different platforms, but this is the one that I ended up playing as a kid. It is a multiplayer game, but I believe the way that it works is you take turns. One person does their route until they either finish it or die, and then the next player takes their turn. The game was wonderfully progressive in the sense that they allowed you to pick between a paper boy and a paper girl in this game. I don't know if I ever played as a paper girl, and I don't think there is a tangible difference between them other than the sprite image, basically. This is, and I think we've talked about this in the past, one of those games that I picked up as a rental very early on in my ownership of the Super Nintendo. I did buy a Super Nintendo at around the time of the release of Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. At that point in time, there were not a ton of great games available on the Super Nintendo. So if you went to the store looking for something to rent, you probably didn't have a whole lot of great selection available at that time. This is one of those games where I think I may have rented it 2 or 3 times simply because it was available. And I thought it was okay. I mean, there are plenty of games that I probably played at some point in time that were not great games, but they were available and they were okay. And frankly, that is kind of the common refrain for rental regrets. More often than not, you just rented the game because it was available, not because it was a quality piece of software. So last time we did a Paperboy video for rental regrets, I talked about the first job that I ever had as a kid, and I thought it would be appropriate to kind of do a sequel of sorts to that, basically talk about the different stuff that I had done as a young teen when I was just trying to make some money in between classes. We did talk about the fact that I had worked for an amusement park, basically in the food and beverage department, where I had to, get to the door. Nice. I don't know if you can, I think this is the game where you can get new subscribers by putting papers on the porches of houses that aren't subscribers already. I want those papers. Got it. This is a subscriber. There we go. So we talked about the fact that I worked for an amusement park and food and beverage. One of the things that I also mentioned in that last episode, that did count, good, is the fact that I also did some side jobs kind of in between summers when I was working at the amusement park. One of the ones that we talked about was, I believe, the bowling alley job that I had, where basically I was just kind of an attendant, fixing problems with the lanes, issuing shoes, acted part-time as a DJ. It was not great. It was basically just, hey, we need someone to fill this CD changer and pick some music to play when we have our rock and bowl events. Nailed you. One of the things that I did not talk about in that episode was the fact that I met my first girlfriend working at that job, kind of. Well, I didn't really meet her there, but she found out that I was working there and then basically started stalking me. As awkward as that was. I won't go into the details about the relationship. I will just say that it once she found out that I was there every weekend on like Saturdays and Sundays, she was basically there every Saturday and or Sunday. Whoa. So another job that I took while I was, hitting the wrong button. I just lost a subscriber there. Another job that I took while I was kind of in between seasonal jobs at the amusement park I worked at. Ow. That kid was flying. I ended up taking a part-time job at a land development company. Basically, at the time, I was taking classes in high school as an accounting student. I had taken some classes in accounting in 11th grade, and it turns out I was actually pretty good at it. I won't say I was the best student in my class at that time. I think there was another girl who was there that was just as good as I was. And I thought, hey, you know, maybe this is something that I could pursue as a career going forward. So I started taking the advanced accounting class that they were offering at the time. Why are these kids flying down the street so fast? Slow down. What are you doing? The job was pretty easy. I will say that part of the reason why I found it easy is because, well, it was part of a co-op, which was organized through the school. Basically, the business would say they'll offer an opportunity for kids to come in and do some work related to their major, get some experience, and then as part of the co-op, you could also leave classes early. And this was only available during my senior year, so they didn't actually have anything for students. Oh no, I'm out of papers. All right, well. Oh, I ate it. Am I dead? I'm not dead, am I? Okay, woo. You got to get out of classes early, and once I heard about that, I was like, well, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and do this because, you know, I don't have a whole lot of interest in going to class every day in senior year. I was kind of getting tired of school at that point. It was an okay job. The big thing was that they paid me maybe a hair below minimum wage and somehow got away with it, probably because I was considered, it may have been that I was part-time or seasonal. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't think I was making much more than $5.15 an hour at that time. You're talking 98, 99. So I don't know what the minimum wage was off the top of my head, but the job was within a couple miles of where I lived. So it wasn't like I was being stripped of a ton of extra cash that I was making working at this job that I had at the amusement park, where I think I was making maybe $7 an hour, so not a whole lot extra. Not to mention I was only driving a couple miles to get to the a job doing the accounting stuff, and when I was going to the amusement park, it was like a 50-mile trip one way. So yeah, I was definitely losing a lot of money that I earned just in paying for gas at that point. Now, granted, gas in 97, 98 was probably only $1. Ah! Why are you driving on the wrong side of the street? You dick. Gas was probably only $1 a gallon. Wrap your head around that one. So I wasn't paying a ton in gas money, but at the same time, I was only making $7 an hour. So, frankly, it was still a lot. While I was working the accounting job, I did tend to get the work that they would give me to do done very early, so I would spend the rest of my afternoons usually doing homework. Like, I would finish what I needed to do for work. They'd tell me, oh, we don't have anything else for you today. Why don't you go eating, they wouldn't let me leave early, but they would say that, you know, you got to find something else to do for the day to keep busy. And they were like, well, you can do homework. That's fine. And I would do that. And frankly, most of the homework at that point was not terribly challenging. I was taking college prep classes, but I don't think any of them were ever all that difficult for me. One of the things that I did find that I did more often than not, if I didn't have homework and they wouldn't let me just leave, is they would tell me, you know, just do something to stay busy. And at the time, I was also taking electives in art. Haha. So what I would end up doing, they'd give me like this little paper blotter that would sit on my desk, like a calendar, big paper desk calendar. And, oh, come on, I hit that ramp. Screw you. So what I do is I would just start doodling. If I had like an elective that I was, or not an elective, but like a topic or style that I was supposed to be working on in art class, I'd probably do something like that. More often than not, it was just with pen or pencil. Ah, I missed the kid. Hoop. There we go. Unfortunately, that may have got me in trouble because at one point I was doing a lot of stuff based on the stuff we were covering. I want to say in world history class. It might have been U.S. history. And we were doing a lot of stuff on World War One and then eventually World War Two. And I was drawing a lot of like dudes in gas masks and soldiers and stuff. And it probably looked like I was like turning into some kind of like militant psychopath. And that wasn't the case. It was just, I got this on my brain because it's part of my classes. But yeah, looking back in hindsight, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have been doing all that. I think at one point I was also very much obsessed with the art that I was doing on like atomic bombs. Because for some reason, I always thought the mushroom cloud was just such a striking image that I would doodle that occasionally. And it was, yeah, probably not a great look when you're trying to start a career as an accountant. But hey, that's just the way that I killed time while I was in between assignments for this job. I also did manage to work. Oh, I got a perfect route. Nice. Work them to giving me basically cash to run gopher assignments. So like if they needed me to run something to the post office before it closed for the day, or they wanted me to pick up some packages, like they would go to a local printer, I would do that for them, but I would be like, you know, I'm only making like $5 an hour and I gotta pay for my food at school and the gas to get back and forth here. I don't have any money for gas. And they'd be like, all right, well, we'll give you a couple bucks for gas. I think I ended up maybe paying a couple of times that year for gas because I was just like, I guess I need gas money. I'd feel bad about it, but whatever. I was a kid and they were stupid enough to keep giving this kid cash for gas. That job lasted for a while until basically they told me that the internship was over. And this was after I'd already graduated high school, but they were like, you know, you do good work. We'll keep you around for a little while. But eventually they wanted to move me to a receptionist position with the company. Now, I could do accounting work with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind my back. No problem. In fact, when I was in high school, during senior year, my advanced accounting class, which was the only one they were offering in the school, I ended up having the highest overall average of all the students in that class, and I got an award at the end of the year for that. It turns out it wasn't all that big an accomplishment because the teacher was pregnant to start the year, and we were being taught most of the first quarter of the year by a substitute teacher who did not know anything about accounting work. So all of us were struggling to keep up with the coursework because we couldn't turn to the teacher to get any kind of guidance whatsoever. I did the best I could. I think my overall average for the year was a B-, which doesn't sound great when you consider that was the highest average in the school for the year. But we had to work with what we had, and unfortunately, ow, you dick. Unfortunately, you know, if we don't have a real teacher who is an expert in the subject to turn to, you're going to end up with kids who just don't know what the hell they're doing. And, you know, it is what it is. I will say that when the company, the land development company I was doing accounting work for, tried to offer me a job as a receptionist, I was great doing accounting work. I was terrible at answering phones. I don't know what it was. I just get the worst stage fright. They would have me, you know, answer the phone. The person who was calling would say who they would want to talk to and what company they were with. And somehow in between that and actually putting the call on hold to transfer it to someone else, I'd forget who I was talking to and who they worked for. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I would get stage fright answering the phone, for lack of a better explanation for what it was. Ah, the dog! Okay. Thought that dog had me. Alright, well, I picked up a whole bunch of new papers and didn't get anything for it. Gotcha. Doing all these naughty little bastard things is not affecting the score. If anything, it gives me more points. The core thing you need to do is you need to hit all the houses that have a blue mailbox. There we go. Everything else is just gravy, but you have to keep in mind if you run out of papers, you can't deliver. So try not to waste all of them on these little bonus point things, especially if you don't know where more papers are. So anyway, they tried to get me to do the receptionist stuff. I basically turned it down and said, I'm here to learn how to do accounting work, not to learn how to be a receptionist. They didn't like that answer. Eventually they said, yeah, the internship is over. We're going to let you go. Whatever. At that time, I was starting to kind of lose taste for accounting work because, well, it was boring. Also, they did one thing that absolutely killed any and all interest I would have had in doing accounting work professionally. As part of the co-op, I had to go on, for lack of a better term, like a field trip, where they would send you to a business that kind of operated in the field that you were trying to study and get expertise or experience in. And they ended up sending me to a bank. Now, I'm a high school student. A bank, if they're a professional organization, is not going to let you do anything that would in any way jeopardize their clients, because that's how they make their money. If, customers' bank records somehow don't match what they should have in there, they'll just withdraw their money, and then you can't, as a bank, make money off their money. So when I got there, they wouldn't let me learn how work on the register worked. They wouldn't take me into the vault. They wouldn't show me how they open accounts, close accounts, do any of that stuff. They just kind of gave me a very lazy and broad overview of what they do at a bank. And then I stayed there for another 3-4 hours with nothing to do. Because it was like, well, I got to be here until this time. I can't leave. And it was, frankly, one of the most obnoxious and boring things I've ever done in my life. Completely turned me off to doing accounting work. Now, granted, that was accounting work for a bank, if anything. I still hated it. It was bad. They did a bad job showing me what they do. And, yeah, I lost any and all taste for accounting around that time. Oh, nailed it. Oh, I gotta start moving. Whoa! Make it to the end of the course! Oh, at the last second! Okay. So that was the end of my time doing accounting work. I will say the owner was very nice to me, and I think at one point he ended up giving me and my dad tickets to a basketball game. At the time, that would have been the, wow! Oh, I should have been plowed through there. They gave me tickets to the Wizards, who were, a bad team at that time. And frankly, that hasn't changed in the years since then. They've been a bad team forever. But it was free tickets to a basketball game that I didn't ask for and were just given to me as a thank you for the work that I had put in. Yeah, the owner was a very nice guy. I have no complaints about that. It was just the work was kind of boring, and then they wanted me to do something that I not only had no interest in, but also was just deathly afraid of doing wrong, because I was so intimidated just by answering phones for some reason. Now, the irony is I do a job today where I have to answer the phone all day, every day for customers, and I just had to get better at it just from working through my fears. Sometime after that is when I would have started work, and I think we talked about this in the Paperboy Rental Regrets episode, the first one. I started working at a plant concession stand. They did, seasonal stuff. At the time, I think I mentioned that it was a Christmas tree lot, and I enjoyed that job quite a bit. It was one of those things where I was taking classes at a local community college, so I was just trying to find something to do in between classes to make a little money and stay busy, basically. It was 3 seasons that they operated. They did a fall season where they sold pumpkins and whatever the winter seasonal plants would be. So like decorative cabbages and rhododendrons, chrysanthemums, plants that were hardy and could withstand cold weather. It was real easy. They would bring in the pumpkins in one big batch at the beginning of the year, my job was basically just walk plant to plant or pumpkin to pumpkin, rotate it out of its spot so that it did not start developing rot from sitting in the same spot too much every day. Sell the good ones, the bad ones, set them to the side so that they could pick them up at the end of the year or at the end of the season rather, and basically just get rid of them. They were considered shrinkage. The pumpkins, they had like a sizing chart for how much to charge for each one. Basically, they just had me group them by size and say all of the pumpkins here are this much, all the pumpkins here are this much. And if they sold, great. If they didn't, no big deal. I did my own till keeping at that point. At the end of the day, I would count out what I had, put it in a deposit envelope, drop it off at the local ATM or whatever, and that was that. It made it real easy to do classwork because the pumpkins were probably overcharged, so they didn't get a ton of business, or overpriced rather. So they didn't get a ton of business, but at the same time, I was getting classwork done, which is something I couldn't say when I was not employed. I wasn't the greatest college student in that regard. That was pretty good. In the winter months, they did the Christmas tree stuff, and we talked about that in the Paperboy episode. One thing I will add is that I had a friend who came and started working at the plant lot as well, and as soon as he realized how little oversight there was in how the accounting for the actual sales was done, he may have taken a little bit advantage of that. I won't go into specifics, but yeah, it's I never did any of that stuff. I didn't want to lose a job for something stupid, especially when I was on a military base, because all of these plant lots were on military bases. And I mean, I was a civilian, so getting onto the base at that time, and you're talking 2001, probably after 9/11, the first year that I started working there. So getting onto the base was already tricky, and I wasn't going to press my luck. During the winter months, they sold Christmas trees. There was this place next to where we were selling the trees that had little mini fried donuts. They would fry the donuts, and they would like put cinnamon and sugar on them. I think I spent more money that year on those than I actually earned somehow. It was all tips. I was getting a ton of tips just from helping people put the trees onto or inside of their vehicles. But I mean, it was like a daily thing. You'd hit it once, twice, maybe 3 times because they were so good. I think they were called Orbits. I think it's what the name of the business was that was making them. Or it may have just been what the vendor was calling them. But ultimately, it was, delicious little donuts that kept you going when it was absolutely freezing and there was no heat at this plant lot. We had a tiny little stand, a little shack we could go in. But most of the time you were outside moving trees around, getting rid of the ones that were falling apart, selling trees and whatever. And then in the springtime, they would just do like seasonal flower sales. So you're talking like your, what are the little delicate ones? Pansies, I think is what they're called. The real colorful ones that are really delicate and like basically you cough on them, they fall apart. They would sell other stuff as well that was a little bit hardier, but those are the ones that for some reason they focused primarily on. That one was a little more involved because, of course, if you're selling flowers and you're keeping it open for usually 2 months, I think we were doing it two months, you had to water them on a daily basis. So there was a little more involved in taking care of those. That job, and I think I did it maybe 3 or 4 seasons, paid as much as I was making when I was working at the amusement park. And again, not driving a 50-mile round trip, just a couple miles from where I lived. So that job paid great, did not stress me out with responsibility, and frankly, it was fun, especially when I had a friend working with me. Not to mention, I just ran over. Not to mention, I had some other like teens who were working with me after working at an accounting job at a land development company where all the employees were like in their 30s and 40s and bitter by the stresses of life. It was nice to still be around some teens that still had a little spark, a little hope in their lives. So that was a good job. Ah. Then I went to college shortly after that. I did not have a ton of jobs while I was in college. It was mostly just focusing on my college work. After I got out, that's when I took the first quote-unquote serious job after college, and that would have been working at a Target. Now, I'll go ahead and be very upfront. Target was one of the worst, if not the worst job that I've ever done. I would never, ever encourage anyone to get a job at a Target. I can't imagine it's any better than Walmart. I've never worked at a Walmart. I will simply say that working for Target just taught me how little a company can actually respect its employees. And it was something that was so demoralizing. At the time, I was thinking, if this is where my life is going to be for the next 30 years, I don't know if I can take this. I had to find a way out. I only worked there for a year, but basically I was doing backroom stock work. So basically at the end of the work day or the business day for the company, they would have people come in overnight and do all the restocking work for the next day. The heaviest parts of the year were obviously around Christmas time, so I would say starting in October and going all the way through Christmas, and then maybe a week or so after, was when we were absolutely just slammed with products that we had to restock on a daily basis. That job basically involved me on a daily basis taking shipments that were brought in. We have one crew that would take the new stuff out of the tractor trailers, put as much of it on the floor as possible, and then my job specifically was I was in the back the whole day, taking anything that we could not put on the floor back into inventory, basically scanning it in so that they knew where exactly to find it, and then the next day if they needed it and they had it in inventory in the back, they could pull it from there. Also, I would pull stuff that was in inventory to be put out on the floor. And I did help with that a little bit, but usually it was another team that was doing that. That job grinded me down on a daily basis. Didn't matter how fast I worked, it was never fast enough. At one point, I had a new supervisor who didn't think we were working fast enough, no matter how fast I was working, and decided that the only way to get through to us that we had to work faster was he was going to reduce my work hours. He was only going to let me work 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week. Now, my not-so-subtle way of fixing that terrible idea was I just started working 10-hour days. So I would find a way to stretch the day out to 10 hours instead of doing it all in 8. So I was like, I mean, if no one makes me leave because you've already left before I do, I'll just work 10 hours. That guy was a major dick. I hated him. He was part of the reason why I stopped working there, but there were plenty of other reasons not to work at that business. There were employees there that basically helped reinforce this notion that it was every man for himself. You know, dog eat dog. There was absolutely no courtesy, no helping other employees. You were only looking out for yourself, and anything else was basically in putting your own job into jeopardy, your own employment. At one point, I did apply to become a team lead. Now, I realize after only a year, that seems quite early on, but while I was working at the amusement park, I actually was an assistant manager before I stopped working for them. So I had management experience, and I knew what I was doing for the job already after working there for, I think it was 9 months when I put in the application. They didn't even give me an interview. They just said, well, you don't have enough management experience. So, like, they wouldn't even hire within their own employees for management. You had to have prior management experience to get hired even as a team lead for Target. So that just, cemented in my mind that I have no future with this company. And then, shortly after that, I applied for the company that I have worked to this day. Almost, no, it is 18 years now that I've been with my current company. So yeah, that was, I think that's just about everything that I had done as a kid, taking side jobs. Never did a paper route. I think I had a friend that did a paper route, and if I was bored occasionally, I'd ride along with him. Of course, it was one of those things where you're delivering papers in the middle of the night, but hey, I have always been a night owl, so that wouldn't have changed much. Oh. There might have been a couple of other really small side things that I tried along the way. Just nothing that I would have a whole lot to talk about. All right, so we've rambled on enough about my jobs. Let's talk about the game as it's been played. I'm playing on what they consider quote-unquote easy, and I'm struggling to get out of one run of the route. I mean, it doesn't feel all that different from what I experienced with the original, and I just crashed again. Every time I do that, damn it. Whatever. Hey, I did perfect delivery, and you do add a subscriber if you finished a perfect run of the route. I thought there was a way to get subscribers by giving them papers that they did not subscribe for, but whatever. I think this is pretty much identical to the original Paperboy. I mean, there's more exotic elements that you have to interact with, but by and large, it plays identically. I guess the big dynamic change is the fact that your entire route is not on one diagonal plane. I think in the original, you were always going bottom left to top right. Oops. Nope, didn't do a perfect delivery this time. Sorry. There are some callback things. I think there was like a Grim Reaper in the original Paperboy, and they have ghosts in this one. All your other standard stuff like dogs chasing you, cars running you over. They did add some more weird stuff like this house with gargoyles shooting lightning bolts at you. And the weird castle house that has like cannon. Pretty sure that wouldn't be legal. I've been very careful to avoid the curbs because you can actually bail if you hit a curb in this game. Alright. Also, I am just taking my life into my own hands going up onto the properties like this. You're actually better off in the street, believe it or not, because there's less stuff that can hit you out there. So, whoop, like this. You can still get hit by a car, but it's a harder shot throwing the paper from here and hitting the mailbox successfully, so... Hup. Yeah. Whoa! That goddamn baby. Every time. Damn you, baby. Oh! I got it! That should not have hit. That was way off. Brake. Like, I feel like I have better control avoiding cars in the middle of the damn street. Alright, this one's good. Oh no! The mailbox! That stupid trash can got in the way. I missed 2 houses down. 2 or 3. Again, I do like the fact that you can put the paper either in the mailbox or on the porch, and they both count. Would be nice if it counted if you hit anywhere on the house successfully, but I'm not going to complain about that. That seems pretty ticky-tack. Dumb. Alright, avoid this thing since it's got me every time. Whee! Way off. Now, I think in the original, you had an unlimited supply of newspapers when you got to this part. Which I definitely don't here. Ah, I missed it. Oh, but they're giving me papers as I'm running the route. Okay. What the hell? I love the... My paper went backwards to hit the target that I was over the water part of the area. I still don't understand why there is a crowd waiting for me to finish my paper route. They never explain that. Hey! So you'd stop them from shooting their lightning bolts by just smacking them with a paper. Most of the stuff in this game, you hit it with a paper and it'll stop. If you hit the dog successfully, it'll stop chasing you. But that's a really hard target because you have to be stopped almost to hit him. Ghost has not been chasing me much, but I think if you let it go, he will actually start chasing you down the street. Oh! Damn it! There goes another one. There you go. I'm knocking you over anyway. Why are there so many houses with gargoyles on this block? What is that guy doing? He could not have been any further on the wrong side of the road if he tried. This is just the most idiotic burglar ever. He has tried to rob that place so many times. I was trying to avoid it. Whatever. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and stop there. There's not a whole lot else to look at in the game. It is literally just you keep going down the same two procedurally generated streets that they kind of make the layout before you start playing the game, and I don't think it changes. You just keep running the same route over and over until you run out of houses or lives to deliver to. Final thoughts on Paperboy 2. Graphically, it is a better looking game than the original, which is not hard because the original was designed for some pretty graphically limited systems, and this one came out on the Super Nintendo, so it had the availability of a higher color palette. I will say, audio-wise, I don't know if it's much of an improvement over the original game. I think it is still a little bit too beep and boop heavy, and there wasn't a whole lot of depth to the soundtrack. It was pretty lackluster across the board. Graphics and audio are pretty eh. Slight improvements, but not really any that would justify the kind of horsepower that a Super Nintendo was capable of, or wouldn't demonstrate the kind of horsepower that it was capable of. It is the same simple loop as the original Paperboy. You're just throwing papers and, trying to up your subscription. I don't think there is an end to this game. It literally is just keep delivering. And the game gets harder over time. More stuff chases after you or gets thrown at you so that you have to constantly be dodging. I don't think I've ever made more than 3 or 4 runs successfully before I eventually ran out of lives or papers or subscribers or whatever. I do guess if you're really trying to make the game stupid easy, you could just let it dwindle down to one house and then spend the rest of your route after you deliver to the one house just nailing other optional stuff. Stopping the baby carriage, knocking over the burglar, hitting the old people out of their swinging chair, hitting dogs and random people. I don't think you can stop vehicles with your papers, but I didn't try. I think you can cheese the system, but I don't know why you would want to. It's not like you're getting so many extra points in this game that you're rolling extra lives at all times if you're taking out those optional things. It's really just a crude way to set a new high score on the high score thing at the end of the game. And again, relic of older times, the idea that points have any meaning or value. It's none of this saves when you turn off the game or turn the power off for the game. The next time you load it up, all of these saves will be gone, or these high scores will be gone. And it'll just be back to AA, BB, CC, DD, and EE as the top 5, or whatever order they were in. So scoring in these games has never made sense, and they have never found a good way to justify it. And frankly, this is one of those relics that went away and probably should stay away. It just doesn't serve a purpose anymore. As far as my regret, I would definitely say I regretted renting it as many times as I did, because I don't know if it's an improvement over Paperboy, enough of one to justify multiple rentals. And, I mean, it's fun in bite sizes, but this would definitely not be one of those games that you would ever want to pick up permanently and add to your collection. Now, the irony of me saying that is most of the games that we look at as part of rental regrets, I've bought so that we can look at them. But I think I paid $10 or something like that for this game. So it's not like I broke the bank to take a look at this game for this one-off episode. And I don't regret that, but it would have been one of those things where if I had been able to tell past me, hey, there's going to be better games coming out on the Super Nintendo soon. Save your money so you can buy something good on the horizon. I absolutely would have done that. And there's probably other games that we'll look at in rental regrets that are going to be the same thing. That I know I rented them multiple times, and I know they were bad, but I didn't have much other choice at that time. It was timing and availability. Timing, meaning, 92, 93, not a lot available on the Super Nintendo to look at. And when you buy a new console, you don't want to go to the store and rent stuff for an old console. You want to take advantage of that new system that you have. And when there's not a whole lot of great games available early on, you're just left renting anything that happens to be in the store so that you have a new experience. And frankly, the early Super Nintendo did have a lot of duds. And that's most consoles. When they're trying to launch a new experience and showcase their new graphical or audio prowess, they would have a whole slate of games that were, meant to take advantage of those capabilities, but the devs didn't really know what they were doing yet with the new hardware. And more often than not, this is when the brand new franchises would pop out, and some of them were literally just, someone spitballing and seeing what stuck to the wall and saying, well, we'll try this. Now, this wouldn't be a good example because Paperboy 2 obviously is a sequel to Paperboy 1. But this is one of those instances where they were like, well, people liked Paperboy, so let's make a sequel. Do we have any new ideas to bring to the table? You can go bottom right to top left for half of it, and then the other half you go the way that you went in the original Paperboy, from bottom left to top right. Brilliant! Print out 10,000 copies immediately. This is just more of the same, and that's kind of disappointing. So yeah, my regret is that I spent as much money as I did renting this game, and I think it was just kind of more lack of options than any real desire to revisit this game multiple times. So yeah, not a great game. Definitely not a huge advancement over the original. That's going to do it for this episode of Rental Regrets. As always, I do appreciate each of you watching, and I will see you next time.